New business. Superintendent's 2016-2017 proposed budget.
Good evening, Chairman DeMaria, school board members. Tonight, I want to present the 2016-17 school board budget. As we begin, things that I'm going to talk about will be the division facts and academic progress, budget priorities, parameters, and the process that will follow along in developing the budget, the 2016-17 proposed budget itself, and upcoming budget meetings. Before we even begin talking, what we have to do is look at our children, who we teach every day. So as you can see with the demographics of Manassas, we have a very diverse population. Our population with 50 languages. English, we have 37% of our students that speak only English. Almost 63% speak more than one language. We have a very talented staff that works very hard in teaching our students English as well as other languages and meeting their daily needs. If you compare us to the rest of Region 4, you can see that Northern Virginia is becoming more diverse. Now granted, Manassas Park and the City of Manassas, we have been down this path for quite a while. The interesting part to that is that as more Northern Virginia schools become more diverse, we found them reaching out to us and our teachers to find out how we make things happen here in Manassas. At the division level, we're seeing great progress. We do have high expectations. Our schools are run by highly qualified principals, and it's the principals that lead our schools. And it's the teachers that work with the principals that meet the needs of our students. As the division continues to see student achievement improve through the work of teachers and staff and students, we will continue to see the improvement. One of the things that we're most proud of is the work that we're doing in mathematics. In mathematics, across our division, we're seeing great progress. It's our fourth year. We're excited to see how our scores look in reading and English and science, as that will be coming up, that we will be approaching that in our fourth year this year. Also, we're very proud of the work that Metz and Mayfield are doing. This year, the State Department awarded partially credited with improving to Metz Middle School. Metz missed full accreditation by 5 points in reading. It was formally accredited with warning. Mayfield was awarded partially accredited approaching benchmark because it also has improved, and they missed full accreditation by 1 point in reading. As improvement continues, we want to measure our progress against school divisions that are similar to us. All areas in green show where Manassas City Public Schools met or exceeded achievement in divisions with similar demographics as ours and having only one high school. Harrisonburg, Manassas Park, Alexandria City, and ourselves are the only 4 schools in the state of Virginia that serve the students of the similar demographics that we have. I have to say that all 4 superintendents work together trying to find what works, and we share those items. I would also like to mention that Manassas Park and Manassas City Public Schools were asked by city superintendents in Virginia to host an event next month where they'll talk about ESOL instruction, pre-K, and the calendar that's currently in progress with Manassas Park. So we're really excited at how much our work is paying off. If you'll notice, there's that strength in mathematics that I spoke to earlier. And we're seeing that even with students, with schools that don't look like us, our mathematics is really shining. Our next slide talks about the work that we've done with ESOL. 4 years ago, the Department of Justice was talking about how we were not meeting the needs of our ESOL students. Today, people are referred to us because of the work that we are doing with our ESOL students. This slide demonstrates the progress that we're making with our students from the time they enter kindergarten through 4th grade. Things changed a little bit, if you'll notice. Baldwin, it used to be that Weems had the most ESOL students, and this year it's Baldwin. If you will also notice, Dean had more students exit this year than they did last year. 4 years ago, we set a rigorous goal for ourselves that students would exit ESOL in 3 years. While we have not been able to reach that goal with every student, we are seeing amazing progress within 4 years. It all depends on the language acquisition students begin school with. A majority of our students are learning a new language while learning to read and write in elementary school. The number of students receiving ESOL services has dropped tremendously at the intermediate level due to the work of our elementary schools. In the 2010-2011 school year, there were 335 students that went from elementary to intermediate to have continued ESOL services. This year, 198. Research that says that it takes 5 to 6 years for new language learners to new language. Low class sizes, an increased number of ESOL and intervention teachers have helped students to exit the ESOL program by the end of their elementary school career. I'm proud of the work that the teachers are doing to prepare our students for the rigorous curriculum that they experience at the secondary level. Another program that we offer that has had resounding success that we still need to build upon, and we still have much ground to cover, is our pre-K program. We currently have the same model that all schools in Virginia can offer, and that's a full-day traditional program. And we have 108 students in that program. We also, through the permission of the Department of Education, the Secretary of State, and the Governor's Office, as well as key members of the Educational Committee on the General Assembly, all agreed that we could work on a blended model to try to reach our kids for which we did not have the classroom space. And with this model, in a 10-day period, students in a 10-day period meet 5 days at their school and work for 5 days at home. We're seeing a lot of success. There's lots of challenges, but we're learning so much with our families and about our students. We served 86 children in our blended program. Model 3 is available, and it's called the Model Innovation City. And what I have to say is we would not have Model Innovation City without our school board. It's through the purchase of Footsteps to Brilliance that we now use with our elementary ESOL program, our elementary special ed program, in grades pre-K and K, although it's still available to 1st through 3rd to teachers who wish to use it, but next year we will be adding that to our 1st grade curriculum. And the Footsteps to Brilliance allows our children to work at home as well as at school in their academics. Model 4 is something that we're exploring this year. Through the work that we've done with our pre-K program, we've received a $50,000 grant. Now that funding can go to help build our Model 2 program, our Model 1 program, but it can also be used to establish a public-private partnership. So we can also have we could have a full day pre-K program or a half day with 2 groups of kids working in a half day program at a child care center run by, that classroom run by Manassas City Public Schools. So we've been talking with a daycare provider about that and looking at the possibilities. I do want to say that our pre-K program runs entirely on the pre-K dollars, along with the in-kind services that we provide that are already existing in the school, and that would be the transportation, the our food services and things like that. And thanks to our Footsteps to Brilliance program, our curriculum is paid for forever. Anyway, our kindergarten Ames Web scores show the importance of what we're doing. If anyone thought that we weren't making headway, these scores demonstrate it tremendously. These are our Ames Web scores, but our PALS scores also showed the same. But tonight, I'm only going to talk about our Ames Web because we have Ames Web measures more, and Ames Web measures our children beyond the state of Virginia. PALS is great because it's a state test, but Ames Web is normed across the United States. So our ESOL and non-ESOL and all students are measured as to how students in that same grade, same age, perform across the nation. So if you quickly look at, if you quickly look at our ESOL scores, where it says yes, that means that that student was in a pre-K program as an ESOL student. Their overall average or above average performance on their first kindergarten pre-test, they scored 93.85% of our students who attended pre-K were achieved average or above average. And then if you look at those that were not able to, which was 245, only 35% of them scored at that level. If you look at our non-learners, our non-ESOL students, you can see that the span is not as wide, but it's just as beneficial because those 35 students that were able to attend our pre-K performed much higher than the 214. Now, one of the things that we still need to do with this data, we're grabbing data as fast as we can with our pre-K program this year. What we want to do is call out the no students if they attended a private pre-K. And we want to measure our Manassas pre-K to the private pre-K students as well as their overall performance. So we're very excited about this, and this does show that we're on the right track with how we need to offer pre-K for our students. Our next project that we've been working on, we've been working on this for 2 years. Later this evening, you'll hear about our CTE program and the plans that we have, but it's not just about Osborne High School. It's about starting in grades K through 5, creating career awareness and exploration, talking with kids about soft skills, and working with them so that they see purpose in their learning. That will move on to grades 6 through 8, where in 7th grade, they're required by state statute to have a career plan. And we want them to be informed. So we start in K through 5, working through those career academies. This year, the focus of our career academies is in STEM. And so when we do our career day in all of our schools, it will focus on STEM. Next year, it will be one of the other areas of our academies. The future for Manassas City Public Schools develops a unique model for our children. The 4 academies have been identified to encompass a CTE K-12 framework. Is that book, my book's doing that, I think. I'm sorry. They said it wouldn't do that, and we just proved it did. In the early grades, students will participate in career awareness and exploration, and they will see some of those courses and get an eye onto some of those courses they'll have at Osborne High School. And finally, what is it that we want to do? We want to create the portrait of a graduate. And believe it or not, this is the same portrait that the state of Virginia has for all graduates. They want them we want our students, and we've said this 2 years ago, to be industry or workplace credentialed. Well, that's the same thing that our state wants to see, and we've been hearing a lot about that. But we also want them to be creative and critical thinkers. We want them to be communicators and collaborators. All of those things are what we're looking at addressing through our K-12 CTE program. But along the way, as we work through this, we can take big steps and sometimes little steps, and sometimes the little steps come about due to funding. Now I'd like to share with you our major challenges that we faced in balancing the budget to meet the needs of our students and staff. This slide shows the history of state funding. While the amount per pupil statewide appears to be more, if the contribution is adjusted for inflation, the projected inflation adjusted per pupil expenditure in 2018 is roughly equal to the 2006 per pupil expenditure. The Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee, also known as JLARC, the JLARC Committee, completed their study regarding the funding of Virginia in 2015. What they discovered is that while Virginia's per capita personal income is higher than 80% of all states, its per pupil expenditure is surpassed by 82% of all the states in the United States. Virginia provided 7% less per K-12 student adjusted for inflation from 2005 to 2014, with non-instructional spending reduced the most, while at the same time, health insurance spending increased 66%. From 2007 through 2016, inflation also was adjusted for the state K through 12 funding, and it declined by 13%. Due to lack of funding, school divisions have spent 30% less to operate and maintain facilities since 2005. So when you look at this upcoming chart, and we looked at this chart last year, you've seen this before, and I keep bringing it back forward because I want our staff to know that when we start out and we say that there are things that we need to have, unless the money is allocated to us from the state, it's going to be hardship in trying to meet our budget. Since 1994, there's been $1.9 billion in general tax fund deductions. And through the years, especially during the recession, the General Assembly made these cuts in order to balance their budget. They equal $1.7 billion. These reductions have never been placed back into the budget, and we continue moving forward. So our governor they've shared a lot of information about our governor, and the governor has talked a whole lot about his proposal, and now it's with the General Assembly. K-12 direct funding has dropped from 35% of all the general fund spending in '09 to 29% currently in fiscal year 16, and up slightly to 30% of the introduced budget by fiscal year 18. When the governor talked about the budget being higher than before, it's because things cost more than before. The 2016 through 18 biennium proposes increases in the K-12 general fund, $930 million, and represents 33% of the new funding, 33% of the new funding at $2.77 billion. Currently, strings are attached because we have to add teachers to each school in order to increase funding. This is worrisome because across the state, as school divisions have approached their funding shortfalls, many have approached them in different ways, including us. Not all divisions cut class sizes. We did not. We still maintain low class sizes. But in Manassas, we met that challenge in other ways by going to a 5-tier bus system. We have not been able to give cost of living raises. What we do is we follow a step increase. And so Manassas City Public Schools does not need to hire more teachers to lower class size. We need to hire more teachers to work with the students that we have that are learning English, that are that are in our gifted programs that we're trying to fund at the middle and high school level, or that we need to work with special education. We have plenty of places where they may be struggling in reading or math. We don't need the money to reduce class size. Fiscal year 18 K-12 funding is still lower in an inflated adjustment per pupil dollars than 10 years ago. For the 2016 school year, state funding was about $1.4 million. The governor's proposal for Manassas City Public Schools for 2017 is about $1.5 million, which when you subtract that from the 1.4 million that we received last year, rounding, you have about a difference of $58,695. I bring this to your attention because in evaluating the differences between last year's revenue and the governor's proposed budget for 2017, we are not as far along as the news releases have reported. When we want to improve what a student is doing and the student is not doing well, we set a goal. And the goal, if a student is 2 years behind, the goal is not for the student to increase by 1 year. The goal is to increase by at least a year and a half, because we know if we can make that year and a half, and that next year and a half, in 3 years, we have that student in the third year, the student is caught up. During the past 4 years, we've been growing every year, but the state continues to fund us as though we are not growing. When we look at the number of new students and the funding following them, this year we had 260 new students, which cost us about $3.2 million. And as you can see, we received $1.4 million from the state to offset those costs. In 2017, we expect 215 new students, and we are always pretty close to our projections, which means we need 2.6 or almost $2.7 million. If the state is going to begin to fill the gap, it will have to look at its method for recovery, just as we do when we evaluate how to catch up students with their peers when they fall behind. So when you look at our projected enrollment, thank you. When we look at our projected enrollment for next year, you will see that this year we started our school year out and we had 7,575 students. We're projected to grow by 7,000 to 7,090. Now these projections are based totally on warm bodies. We are just merely rolling the numbers up, and the projection falls that whatever we have in kindergarten this year is the kindergarten for next year. In order to make our budget balance, we do not inflate the enrollment by any percentage. Even though we know we grow, we've been lucky so far, and we've projected right where we're going to be. Okay, so we're getting to the dollars. As you know, for the last 3 years, we've been operating on levels. And just to quickly review you, level 1 is where the principals and the schools work together to identify their needs. All of that information is submitted into Munis. At the second level, when all the information is collected, at the second level, the principals come in, meet with the superintendent's cabinet, not the superintendent, present and discuss what their school's needs are. After all those meetings take place, the cabinet meets further, if necessary, with individual principals, and they meet among themselves, and they design a recommendation to the superintendent. And it's at that time that they present the budget that they see to the superintendent. Level 4 is when I look at what they are talking about, and it's never exact. When what I will present to you tonight is the part that I had to remove. All along the way, we're removing things, and sometimes they find out when they present the budget that maybe it was already in technology's budget, and technology was in the same place as the principal was. So some of the items may get removed that way. There can be other duplications along the way, and there can be things where we find out that costs are going to be less. The price of technology goes down sometimes and goes up other times. The cost of services goes down sometimes, comes up. Diesel fuel is an example. Right now we're seeing, we're experiencing, we're in a good place right now with diesel. Don't know what it'll look like next year. So those things cause those adjustments when we sit down and we cost them out. So my final, when I was finished, my final to the school board at this point on the school operating fund will be $96,816,958. The difference from level 1 to level 4 was 10.8 million. And if you'll remember last year, it was 15 million. So what are our cost drivers? This is something that I've already talked to and alluded to as I've spoken to you tonight. We are a highly diverse community. We have 31% of our students being served as ESOL, an ESOL program. We have 61% of our students receiving free or reduced lunches. Our per student costs are higher depending on our area of challenge. One area of challenge that has gone down is our special education. We have our RTI program has been making great gains with our students, and in most cases, the reason our numbers are going down in special education is because we have found solutions for them, and they are making progress outside the services of special education. We've also been working on efficiencies, and that's a word that we've talked about all year long, and it began last year in this budget cycle that we were going to talk about efficiencies, because we're getting to where we're trying to find dollars. We look in our zero-based process, but maybe there's something else that we could be missing. So this year we've been exploring efficiencies. We're working now in print management, and that has been it was a challenge because it was a change. And right now, we're $30,700 under budget in our printing, which what I've told the teachers and administration is that if the printing costs go down, that's money that can go directly to instruction. We also have IT efficiencies that have been desperately needed, and I'm glad that we're where we are, because now that we're becoming a one-to-one environment at Osborne High School, all the infrastructure work that we've done in all of our schools, the work that we need to do requires more labor. But if we bring ourselves up to standard and we put things in that makes us work smarter, not harder, we also are able to work cheaper. So Mr. Barrett's department, the work that he's done, you can tell on the very top one, that was amazing to me, 350 man-hours per year. But all of the other things, when I came to Manassas City Public Schools, and I'm not going to speak real well to this because I'm not real good in technology, but I do know that I asked Mr. Barrett about this ability to push an app or to push upgrades on our technology from central office, because the division I came from, nobody went around touching everybody's computer, but we did that when I was here. We have that now. And so some of the work and the place that we're going, our people can, and when they're able to work smarter, they can look at what we're doing and we can become more creative. Instead of working on all of these problems that we're having to deal with, we can now get out and collaborate and look at what we can do to better meet the needs of our students. The other efficiencies that we looked at is utilities. Last year, if the board will recall, we brought a company before you that said they would reduce the cost of our energy. But it would be at a cost for us. Even though they said that we wouldn't pay more money, the money we saved would have gone to the company. So what we want to do is look at those savings ourselves. So it took a while. There's not a lot of energy management specialists out there. But by October, we found an energy management specialist who has been working with Mr. Helton and Mr. App. She has presented a energy plan to the cabinet and is very close to getting ready to present it to principals and then out to the staffs. In the meantime, the first goal is for us to create that energy savings that pays her salary and benefits. And then we want to go to the next level so that we can start using these energy savings to pay for our 5-year maintenance plan. Because that's what our whole purpose is trying to find ways to take care of the work that we're doing. And then finally, in human capital, one thing that's so very important is how our people work and how sometimes you save people energy, and sometimes there's also staff costs that you save. Employee self-serve is one of those things that we're now utilizing. So it will save us $6,500 this year, but it also saves people time. And Another one was, I had a teacher come and talk with me about a K-3 student achievement record. And it was something that the state still requires, but it's very archaic in the fact that everything that they teach a student, every time they test the standard, they're supposed to record the standard and how the student did. If the student didn't know whether, they have to come back and record it again. Well, we have technology, and we can pull the data out of our technology without the teachers going back and doing that. And at the same time, that's the time that teachers were taking to doing checklists for the state, we're letting the computers do that so that they have time to plan, grade papers, make contact with parents, or collaborate with each other. So our highlights for this year, while we'll eventually talk about what we weren't able to do, what we were able to do was very significant. We offer AP and dual enrollment, but now with the dual enrollment program that we're putting in place that you'll hear about shortly through our CTE program, when we stand on the stage and give children their diplomas, some of our kids will also be receiving 2-year degrees from NOVA. We have our integrated math and science program, which has been recognized by the state, but we're bringing back our integrated humanities program. The reason that it went away was because they took the course in middle school, but then there was nothing else for the next steps. We were also having some problems in the past because the students had extra time left in the day for which they needed another class period of something to be taught, so that we were following the Virginia guidelines. Well, the class is coming out again. It will be offered this fall at Metz, and this program will be a pathway all through high school, so that our children that want to participate in an integrated humanities pathway, that it will be available to them. And as they graduate, some can graduate with 3 languages. The next program that we're rolling out next year, and this has come through the Hayden community, they've worked hard, this is their 2nd year of planning in this, and they've talked a lot about it, is the dual immersion program. A dual immersion is when children come to school and they learn entirely in one language in the morning and then English in the afternoon. The language will be Spanish. Students will be immersed in a language from the first day of school in that content area, and in the afternoon or the morning, how that curriculum flips, they will be in English. These students, they've worked on a program that will start with kindergarten and work through elementary, eventually into Mayfield, through Metz and in high school. And these students, if they stay with the program all the way through high school, will graduate fluent in 3 languages. Baldwin will be opening next January 17. We're hoping that all of our students will get to visit Baldwin the day before they get out for winter holiday. There's a great activity. We can have a great activity and opening prior to that. Let them go home on the buses, and then they'll arrive on their buses in January. We're very excited about Baldwin. It is on schedule. This was the opening time that we planned. Then Baldwin Intermediate will open in the fall. Well, we have also applied, we've actually been strongly encouraged by the Department of Education, as well as Micron and BAE and some of our other companies around us, to have a Governor's STEM Academy at Osborne High School. It is not the same as our Governor's School at George Mason. We are not discontinuing that. That's a very important research program for our students who are interested in fields of research or medicine. The Governor's STEM Academy covers everything that we do today is STEM. When we talk about the work we're doing right now, this is STEM. You're creating, you're using multimedia, you're working. When people repair their car, when you get your car repaired at your local dealership, it's STEM. And so we're very excited about where we're going at Osborne High School in STEM. STEM is in business, it's in the arts, it's everywhere. This is not just we're not just talking about engineering. Our one-to-one at Osborne High School will be completed next year. All 4 grades will be one-to-one. and we will be rolling out our K-12 CTE program as well as our K-12 STEM plan. Soft skills curriculum will begin in our secondary program. Teacher externships are starting this fall, this summer, and that is when our teachers will be working with companies to look at what's going on in the world of work so they can bring back that information and experiences to our students. Positive behavior intervention support will be in its second year, and that was a focus on student behavior. They work with students in their own personal behavior as well as how to deal with things that happen due to peer pressure and bullying. Our pre-K program will be added to our NEST program, which means our pre-K students will start 3 weeks early, and we'll have a full implementation of our Manassas Public Schools K-12 counseling plan. So we've got a lot on our platter for next year. We're very, very excited, and we've got a lot of people that are looking forward to rolling out the work that they've been working on for the last 2 years. Of our operating budget, I'm sorry, I turned 2 pages. Overall, the proposed budget includes the following compensation adjustments. Our teacher and support step increase. Every year, we have been able to offer our teachers their step increase. And I feel very fortunate, and I thank the board for its work in making that possible. We have worked this is our second year working on our support step placement. If you recall last year, everyone was placed on their step, moved to the closest step, and we worked from there. Now we're at a place where we evaluated every employee, support staff's employee personnel folder, and we looked at their experience to see if it matches the current experience that they're doing now, and moved as necessary those to the right place. That has been included in our budget proposal. There's a 2% of midpoint for administrative scale position increases. We still have a mid-max in our administrative support scale. We know that we will see a 5% increase this year in health insurance costs, and our VRS proposed rate changes, most of those rate changes are going to hit us much harder next year. 85% of the budget is salaries and wages, which leaves about 15% of the budget for other needs. So you will note that there's a CTE contingency listed on the graph, and that will be explained further in the CTE presentation. When you see the breakdown of where our money is sitting right now, you will see that there's 76% of our dollars are resting in the schools. Administrative and support services, where you see 10 million, that's going to be our social workers, that's our transportation and our maintenance. Student achievement and accountability is special. You'll see special education, ESOL, all of our instructional programs, gifted, fine arts. Information technology, that's all of our print costs, all of every bit of technology that our staff and students use, as well as the infrastructure to support it. Human resources is the department where we do our recruiting and our evaluation and support staff. Finance and purchasing services takes care to make sure that our bills get paid and our people get paid. The board and superintendent services, that also includes our legal fees that we budget every year. And then you have communication and public relations, and then non-department, which is our lapse and turnover. So what does it all look like when it's all put together? This slide documents the revenue breakdown between the general operating fund, federal grant fund, and food service funds. For the third consecutive year, school breakfast and lunch prices are not subject to change, and they continue to be self-sustaining. The totals on this slide for revenue on our operating fund represent operating fund only, City funds have already been adjusted for the CIP and debt service funds, and the above totals $2,350,455. So what were the unmet needs? These are our basic, these are the ones that when my staff met with me, that you wish you had the extra dollars to find the people. Will we still be able to do our jobs? Yes, we will. Having some of these teachers make some things a little bit easier on some days, most days? Yes, it would. Our total position request that we could not meet was almost $1.9 million. If you look at the non-personnel needs, you can see some of the things that we made adjustments to. Some due to costs that when we evaluated what we were spending this year, that we saw that it didn't cost as much as we thought it would. So we've made some, where you see the word adjustment or reductions, it means that we have determined that either the costs have come down or our budget that much didn't need to be budgeted for the future. So, which is the sole purpose of our zero-based process. And then finally, our program support requests. You're going to see there's a gifted, talented implementation reduction. That was taken out because we'll move that forward the following year. Most of that due to the fact of the way when we go to open Baldwin, the new Baldwin, and the projects that are moving forward at that time. And then finally, you see where the new buses and drivers are. The cost is increasing because our school system is growing. When we first started with this, it was about $2.5 million. And as we continue to run on a 5-tier, those are fewer buses. It would take about 30 buses, 23 buses, and 23 drivers. The buses would be that one-time expense, except for the maintenance part, but the drivers would be ongoing. Total requested needs identified that were not in the budget is about $7.8 million. It was about 7.2 last year. We're really running close. Coincidentally, that is the same amount of money that if the state of Virginia would restore its funding the way it funded us previously, we would be looking at these needs being met. City funding is based on a funding agreement of 2.625% annual increase through 2019. Fiscal years 20 and 21 were provided by the city for projection purposes only, since the funding agreement will be revisited in 2018. In fiscal year 17, there's a slight change in the debt service cost and an additional increase of $1 million in CIP pay-go. The remaining city funds, $509,879, will be used in the operating fund. Pay-go funding has been increased by over $1 million from fiscal year 16, and an additional $3.6 million will be needed to fully fund the Gillum Field relocation through the use of bonds. We continue to monitor the facility plans and proactively work through our CIP. That's one of the things that we really do need to keep up with, because when we hit the recession, we didn't have the money to continue working on our buildings, and so really all superintendents across the state are struggling with that area. In fiscal year 2016-17, my proposed budget funding sources, this is a breakdown of the debt service and capital projects funds. Debt service is about the same as it was last year, but will fall to about $1.6 million in 2018. We have public budget meetings scheduled for the budget that I've presented to you. Your next budget meeting will be February the 17th from 6 to 9 p.m. at the local office boardroom. You will also note that there's a budget meeting scheduled for March the 1st, as well as March 15th. We have public input on the 8th, and the school board is projected to approve its budget on March the 29th, and the school board is projected to present to the city council on April the 4th. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Magouyrk. Okay, just real quick, I'd like to thank you for all the work you did and all the work the staff did to present this. This, I believe, is the way, not that I've been in any other school system or anything else, but this is the way a executive should present their budget to their board, and I really appreciate it. There's a lot of things to go over here and a lot of information there that's available to everybody, being as transparent as we possibly can be. And our budget will eventually turn into our budget, and we'll do our best to meet all the needs that are out there. Thank you.